You going to the ballgame?
Thank you.
There were seats available in Baltimore.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Wednesday, April 29th, 2015. My name is Scott Bugby. To my right is Jim Lehan. To my left is Jeff Colombo. To Jeff's left is Jack Hathaway, our town administrator. And to Jack's left is Marion Harrington, our executive assistant. Please be advised, this meeting will be audio and video taped. Jack, can you read us the agenda?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Chairman. 7 p.m., call to order. First order of business, we have a joint Verizon N-Star poll hearing for Boardman Street, followed by health insurance discussion with the Insurance Advisory Group. Followed that by, we have Robert McGee, the DPW Director, in to talk about a number of DPW challenges. Town Administrator report, including consider allowing Pulte Homes to access and utilize a portion of open space per the attached letter. Please consider appointing Charity Stolars, 40 Ridge Road, to the Cultural Council. We have acceptance of minutes for March 10th, March 25th, and April 13th. And finally, we have an executive session for the purposes of collective bargaining or litigation.
Perfect, thank you. Would you like to join us up here? Thank you.
I was looking at you thinking you were one of the maybe a new employee, and you were out of place.
Is that an offer? Or?
There you go. Wait a sec, we haven't done the budget yet. Thanks for coming again.
My name is Kellyanne Condon. I represent Verizon New England, Inc. And this is in conjunction with all the utility upgrades with the poles and everything. There's an existing pole across the street from the property at 37 Boardman Street. Right now, there's a guy wire from that pole into a tree across the road right in front of 37. We want to remove that guy wire and place a pole so that we secure it to a pole rather than the tree.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
I assume, Jack, we've got no issues from, not that the butters would say much anyway. Questions, Jeffrey?
No issue.
Yeah, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was easy.
Call Jack tomorrow about that opportunity.
Yeah. It's called town administrator?
Assistant Town Administrator.
Oh, assistant town administrator, right now. We're not creating new positions, folks. Thanks, Jack.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, are we running out of time?
Close enough.
Yeah. Health insurance discussion. Scott, you join us up here, or how are we doing this?
So we have
Microphone.
You gotta have the microphone, buddy, or step up the table.
We have members here from the Insurance Advisory Committee who want to give a presentation on what's been going on with health insurance over the last few years. And may have a proposal. We've been looking at some different options on insurances, but I think it's a great idea for the council, the committee to come and update you on kind of what the recent history has been on the insurances, et cetera. Did I cover that okay?
You did, but I'm going to put a little wrinkle on that.
Do whatever you want.
Do you want to, it'll be easier for you? You want to come up here?
Doesn't matter. So the good news is you're going to get out here a lot sooner tonight than you thought, because...
Oh, you don't know what else is on the agenda.
Okay. The bad news is we have chosen not to present to you tonight our presentation, because we feel that it's all too rushed, and if you guys are like us, you just want to get through town meeting and budgets and be able to sit down and have a fruitful conversation after we enter the new fiscal year.
Okay.
So I know you guys meet limited times in the summer, but we were wondering if we
No,
could
we
be
meet
put
every
back
two-
on the agenda, maybe like the first week in August or something?
meet
or the
every
first
2
time you
weeks.
meet?
We do still
Oh,
meet
you
up
do?
to- Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. Yeah.
We're not allowed vacations.
okay.
I won't-
Okay, so
I won't
that-
be here.
Yeah, maybe Jack might now. I
Okay,
can't speak for Jack.
so we would like to do that then, and give you our presentation. And then also, years back when we had met, you had come to the table and had we learned a lot from each other just by having conversation and trying to figure out a plan going forward. So I think we'd like to try that approach again,
Sounds fine.
okay?
Great.
Yeah, we'll look forward to it.
Okay, well, thank you
Contact
very much.
Jack whenever you want to get on,
You made that easy.
Okay,
Thank you.
I know who to contact.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, don't talk to Jack.
Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming.
I think that we can adjourn now.
Moving on. I want to move on. You want to do the DPW?
Bob's not here.
Bob's not here yet.
You want to move, you want to do, we want to do Pulte?
I don't know if the gentlemen from Pulte are here. Is everybody here?
Would you like to join us up here? Sure. Thanks.
It's just the yellow requires you and Jim.
Okay.
Night, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Welcome to stay. Just
Oh, how you doing, Mark?
Hi, guys. Welcome.
Hi, how
How are you? Good. Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
before we go, you do have a letter in your packet from John Welton, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. Bob McGee's on his way.
Okay.
And
You, Charlie?
they're recommending approval of the request, so.
And then I watched the planning board, so I saw you guys talking about where you put it between the, and the butters are all happy, right? Everyone's,
Thrilled, is my understanding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very
I watched the planning board meeting as well, and I've talked personally to John, and I know how strongly he supports this, so I think you're in for an easy conversation
he's
tonight.
Great, yeah, and of course Jeff is
Right.
very familiar with it.
Do they all have hard copies?
And John Weddleton has been, very helpful and very involved.
It seems like a good solution.
Yeah, we're happy to have one.
I have watched all the meetings, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
Printed.
We've worked hard, Mike has worked very hard, and, we're excited to just, move forward, proceed,
Yep.
finish the project, and hopefully, work together with the town and get it done, and that's our goal. So we have a solution, there's a lot of work that's been put into it, and
Yeah, I know there has.
we're just trying to get the final approvals now of it so that we can implement it.
so what do we need to do, I mean, the conservation restriction hasn't been placed on it, right? Just whether we want to,
It has not been placed. What we've done is we've offered that in return for the town's permission to work on your land, we've offered Lot 4 as, that we would put a conservation restriction on Lot 4 so that that would not be permanently built in the future. And so obviously that hasn't been done yet, but it could be a condition of your permission. I think it's going to be a condition of either the conservation's approval or the planning board's approval, and it's something that we would follow up with. Obviously, a conservation restriction, takes a little bit of time, but
So I guess the way we would need to word this is that we would vote to put a conservation restriction on Lot 4 pending approval, final approval from the planning board. And in other words, if all of this gets finalized, you would know, if we did a conditional vote, I would think, because you haven't formally given, we don't have the land, so we can't put a restriction on something we don't own at this point in time. But once, I don't know how we can.
for which land?
Lot 4.
So the way we've proposed it.
You want to trade, basically.
Well,
No,
the way
that
we've
looks
proposed it is
good.
that the homeowners association, so the Fox Run Homeowners Association is set up. It's an entity that owns land already. They own the wastewater treatment plant. They own the wastewater treatment facility, leaching fields. So they could own Lot 4, the land, and we, the developer, would put a conservation restriction
it.
on top of the land so that it wouldn't be developed in perpetuity. It wouldn't have to be a transfer of property. It's a restriction.
So you just need permission from us to work on our land.
Correct.
so we don't want the land, I mean, or is it, is that?
No, we don't.
Just
we don't need that.
restrictions fine?
Yep.
Okay.
So how would we word this motion, Jack?
Well, you would authorize them access and the ability to utilize the upland portion of the lot that is identified as map 6, block 62, lot 200. In exchange for placing a conservation restriction on more or less 135,453 square feet, or 3.11 acres of land identified as Lot 4, Warren Drive. I would think that would work.
Okay. So I will make the motion that, to allow Pulte Homes to use Maple Street Conservation Land identified as map 6, block 62, lot 200, in exchange for what is known as Lot 4 on Warren Drive, to be designated as conservation land upon completion of the project, I guess. Is that how this would
Yeah,
work?
we would proceed with the conservation restriction right away. It just takes a little bit of time for
Okay.
the form to be approved and then for the approving.
Okay. Will that do it?
Yeah, I think so, because we still have lot releases and such, so there's, yeah, that
Did
would
you get
do.
that? I got it. You are so
Do I have a
good.
second?
Second.
Any other questions?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much for your time
Thank
tonight.
you. Thanks for working so hard on this. We have watched.
Well, thank Mike. He's doing it all. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Do you just have, do you need their names? Just,
Mark. Need to sign underneath, maybe appropriate here. Okay, so we're still ahead of schedule. So the next thing, I think, is the, please consider appointing Charity Stolares to the Cultural Council.
Could I ask a favor?
You can ask a favor, certainly.
If agreeable to you gentlemen. Scott's here. Could we talk a little bit more about health insurance? I mean,
Yeah.
before we have, would that be agreeable?
Yeah, that's fine with me. We got time?
Do we have time?
We all time in the world.
Want to join us up here, Scott?
And Jack, did you run some numbers?
I have it in the budget. I have a couple of years. Thought I had more in there.
There you go, Mr. Chairman. Oh, the third, sorry. I know health insurance has now become our 10th largest budgeted item.
Fourth.
Fourth, excuse me,
I was
fourth,
gonna say,
sorry.
I wish it was 10. I wish it was
So,
10.
fourth, sorry about that.
Yeah.
It's over $2 million.
Want to sit here, Jack? You want my seat?
Until next week.
Thank you. I know, Marion, it's gonna be fun. Only Jim gets one of those pieces of paper, I guess, or is that sure?
He pulled out his budget that I gave out the last meeting. If you would like a copy.
No, I probably have it. No, I
Here,
have
I'll
it.
share, right here.
No, I have it. Jeff probably has it too. So I
I
didn't-
brought a lot of stuff.
So my question is, Scott,
Second or third page.
we're at 60, what are we at?
63%.
63%. I looked at Plainville's benefit plan, and I looked at Rentham's.
Oh, you found it, okay.
And our plan, they both, I think, I know Rentham, I'm trying to remember Plainville. Rentham pays a higher percentage. Is it 70?
I think it is.
70%.
It is.
Most towns, we're on the low side. Most towns are in the 70 to 75% range.
And we were at 55, Jack, were we not, 8 or 9 years ago?
In 2003, we were definitely 55, and for a couple of years after that as well.
And we agreed to sort of inch it up over time, and then and we got up to 63. So we have up to 8%, our portion,
Yep.
in basically 10 years. When I looked at Rentham's plan, while they pay more, our benefit schedule is much better.
Less deductibles.
Less deductibles, correct. Well, that's, makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
And just when you get a chance to talk to the insurance committee, to me, there's a trade between, when you, let's just hypothetically say we pay a larger portion, the employer portion, then that trade would have to come in reduced benefits. because we can't continue to grow health insurance at 10% per year and survive the current plan. So that would be hypothetically a trade we could make.
Right.
That trade works if you don't have problems. In other words,
Such as?
well, if you don't have very many medical issues in the course of a year, you would jump
the
at
insurer,
the
you mean.
opportunity to pay less, have
Yes,
the employer pay more,
yes.
when you don't really have to exercise the plan to a great degree.
Right. If you had
Right.
issues that cause you to have a lot of
Right.
hospitalization.
So for those people that have issues that they need to deal with, that's not a good trade. The benefits outweigh the differential in cost.
Yes. There are out-of-pocket maximums that are mandated that are in all of the plans, but yes,
Is that a fair analogy?
yes, there certainly must be people that it would cost them more money.
So one of the things when we have that discussion, I think that would be helpful, would be to have that analysis, to show the Rentham plan. And I'm thinking Rentham Plainville, just because
No,
they're
I
competitive.
understand.
Pick Medfield, any place you want.
Well,
But look at the towns that touch us and what their employer portion is, and then the benefit schedule. And so that when we talk about it, we have a fair comparison, because you have to weigh both sides of that.
Sure.
And so I'm just suggesting that when we have that discussion, that would be helpful.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and the other thing that's driving our costs is that because we have a good plan.
More people.
We're getting more people coming on. So our increase last year in just in medical benefit costs to the town was about $300,000.
But that's, we're vulnerable to that anyway.
Yes.
You know, one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I think when we have the discussion, we have to be sure that
It's apples
it
to
isn't
apples.
just money, because it is, well, it isn't just money, but the money's on both sides of the equation. It's what's out of pocket when you have problems versus what you're paying, and the relativity of that as it relates to not having problems. So I think if we could have that comparison, I think that would make it a more helpful conversation.
Yeah, I understand. The committee is, in my experience here, has been risk averse about making changes, because
No, I understand.
and I understand it too. I mean, these are, it's a good plan, it's a great benefit, and if these plans are changing every year. The landscape is changing. That's probably a better way of saying it. And I think they recognize that. And at the moment, we've got a great plan. And I don't mean to speak for them, but I think they'd like to keep it as long as they can.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
Now, Scott, without getting like individual insured details, because like Jim was talking about, all the co-pays, is there a way to get like how much it was, because they don't pay them, how much would have been paid, like if they went into alternative one, each individual probably knows his or her experience. Would it be like if I was to be in favor of, having higher deductibles, and maybe more coverage, in terms of split between employer and employee, but, if I'm healthy, you're right, I roll the dice, okay, I haven't had any hospital co-pays in the last 10 years, so.
Right.
I don't mind $250 if I'm getting a better deal, but do we know can we get any incident details?
What-
Again, not personal, but.
Yes, what I have data on, Julie has data, is, that we get from Maya, is how many people had MRIs, CT scans, how many people had in-hospital outpatient stuff.
That would be good to know.
It could be that there's one person went 6 times.
Yeah.
I won't know that,
That's
but I'll
fine.
know.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
I'll know, I do have that data.
It'd be interesting. Again, Jim likes to
Yeah.
just to see. Because maybe they're all concerned about this, but maybe it's not
Yeah.
as if the membership and the majority of the folks aren't. I don't want to say taking advantage of, because you hope they never take advantage of any of these things, right? But
Right.
using them, maybe it's not as big as they think. I know it's there. It's a number, because if you're not used to paying zero, and you say, oh God, what does that have to go to outpatient
Yeah.
surgery? It would cost you
In fact, that is the case, because we presented, one of the things that we mentioned to the committee that was a possibility, one of the reasons they were thinking about coming here, was if they took a plan that saved about 5%, but added some co-pays in it for, imaging and in hospital stays and that kind of stuff. We talked about, the town putting away maybe $15,000 a year for a couple of years to help reimburse people for those expenses. But, I think the feeling is there still would be some people that it would cost them money, and they're sensitive to that. And, you know, so I think that's why there's also, they were concerned about having to turn in receipts so that somebody might know that they had you know, yeah. So I'm not sure it was a violation, but there was concerns, privacy concerns, and I understand that. So that's why we were thinking about, you know, do we do something with the percentages, as you suggest, Jim, in maybe in place of some changes to a plan, so.
What is the definition of, I mean, I don't ever recall seeing this, a low-cost facility versus a high-cost facility?
Yeah,
Is it a hospital within the, well, let me, you answer it, I won't answer it, please.
Sure. It's not in our current plan, but it is an option, and it's becoming more prevalent. Certain hospitals, and you can guess which ones those are: Mass General, Children's, Brigham and Women's, cost more. So
All the ones you want to go to?
well, it depends why you need to go. If you've got a serious, unique disease, we get the best hospitals in America here. But if you're getting your appendix out, it might not really make a difference which hospital you go to. That's up to you, but it might not. So, or also if you're getting an MRI, to go to Mass General to get an MRI costs more than to go to Milford Hospital to get MRI, which theoretically is the same. So that's a theory anyway. So there is a higher copay for going to the high-cost hospitals versus the lower-cost hospitals.
Which we don't currently have now.
We don't have that on our plan, but that, you know, some plans, it's becoming much more prevalent, particularly with companies that are doing it. Because the insurance companies go out and negotiate with each of these hospitals rates every year or two, and then
I mean, if you want to, if you're having major joint surgery, for example, I mean, New England Baptist is supposedly one of the best.
Yeah.
That would be considered a high-cost facility.
Yes.
So under our plan, you have no deductible. Under the alternative two, you'd have a $1,000 deductible.
On alternative two, that's
Two,
correct. Yeah, no, that's not one that we considered, but.
No, but
if you look-
that's the difference in benefit. That's what I want to see.
That is exactly right. If you look at the alternative on the far right, that is now the state's benchmark plan, the GIC benchmark plan, and you can see there are a lot of deductibles.
A lot
in
of
there.
deductibles.
And there's also higher deductibles and a range of costs for medication. So those are all brand-new things that the state added on their plans. They have various plans, but their average plan, which is what that is, there were a lot of changes. Because frankly, they ran about $170, $190 million deficit this year, and the state can't continue to do that. You gotta pay for insurance.
Just a basic question, because I'm
Yeah.
the newbie here, but, so in terms of what options exist presently?
Yes.
For employees, is it simply a matter of selecting whether it's single, two-party, or family, or are there various options that coincide with different levels of premium, different plans? I mean, which kind of talks to what Jim's point, et cetera, in terms of what is the value of
Yes.
having a lower deductible, what is the value, and that's a kind of a personal decision that people
Yep, there are
try to make.
we have three plans that any employee can do. Almost everybody goes into the plan that you're seeing there. But we also have a PPO, which the town pays not 63, but pays 50% of, because it's very expensive. It has, you know, very few deductibles. It's not a network plan, so you can go to any doctor you want, et cetera, and that costs a lot of money. It's what people had, you know, 30 years ago in insurance, but it's mandated that we have it, so we do have that, and the town pays 50%. We also have a catastrophic plan, very high deductible plan, which, you know, if you're 21 and healthy, you know, it can save you a lot of money. But, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but you break your leg, it might cost you $2,000 as opposed to 50 or something like that. But you pay a lot less, so you kind of play with the odds there. But those plans are available. And then for retirees over 65, we do have the Medicare plans.
So, you know, as we go forward and we look at various options, it still might come down to a personal decision in terms of whether an employee would take one option and pay less, or take another option and pay more.
Yeah.
So in other words, we're not going to get to the point where there's only one alternative for the employee and there's one premium for a given number of.
No. Maya is pressing us a bit to get rid of the high deductible plan because there's like one person on it. And there's 2 or 3, I think, on the PPO that we would keep because it's mandated. So most people are on that other plan. And per Massachusetts law, as I think we had talked recently, any changes to that are negotiable with the unions. So it's not something that we can just decide we're going to make some changes. Any of those changes are negotiable with the unions.
Okay.
It's a complex, it's a moving thing. Every year it changes. There's a mandate, there is a maximum out-of-pocket mandated for prescriptions this year that comes with the affordable health care. So that's now, it's a good thing. But those things cost money. There are some big changes coming with some taxes in 2018, but the regs haven't even been written yet, so no one knows what that's going to mean.
Okay, well, those plan-to-plan comparisons would be helpful for other towns.
Yep,
And like incidents, the number of use, the.
yep, and we have that. Not a problem.
Jim, to answer your question from earlier, I looked back at what our budget was for medical insurance going back to 2007. 2007, it was $1,070,000. I'll skip a few years. 2010, it was 1.4 million.
What are we at, 1.9 now?
That was in 10?
Yep. 13 is 1.8 million. And this year is proposed to be 2.1 million.
Thanks, Jack. Wow. Doubled in 10 years.
Anything else, Scott?
Nope,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, look at that. We're getting back on schedule. We're still ahead by 2 minutes.
I just did that to get you back on schedule.
I appreciate that, Mr. Leahan. You're always looking out for my best interest.
Hey, while we have Sergeant Shannon here,
Yes. I'm not sure why we have Sergeant Shannon here, but he must get something.
while he likes to pop in, and he does not like to be put on the spot, I like to put him on the spot, and
Which is why he is popping in less frequently.
I haven't seen him since last time you put him on the spot, but that's okay.
I am happy to tell you, as you already know, but maybe not everybody knows, Safewise.com has named Norfolk number 7 on their 100 safest cities or towns in America. So, we are number 7, so that is not only a reflection on our fine public safety, particularly the police department, but also, obviously, it's a reflection of the people that live in Norfolk who choose to live a safe life. So
7 in the country.
number 7 in the country. Yeah, it's funny. I one of the emails I got from them, I swore said number 7 in the Commonwealth, but I'm looking at their website and it's 7, and it's obviously we're compared to other towns, so other states.
Yeah.
What was the safest, just out of curiosity?
Hibbing, Minnesota.
As it said in the little article. I wouldn't know that if I didn't read the article.
That's probably safe because it's 100 degrees below zero for 9 months out of the year, would be my
Yeah.
best guess.
But when did-
I'm surprised Wayland got number 6. That's
Really?
yeah.
So what were the top 6, 7? We're 7. What were the
We're
top
7. Hibbing, Minnesota is number 1. Upper Providence Township, Pennsylvania is number 2. Zionsville, Indiana is number 3. Again, they're probably frozen 3/4 of the year. Ridgefield, Connecticut, number 4. Southern Connecticut. South Park Township, Pennsylvania, number 5. Wayland, Massachusetts, number 6. Norfolk, Massachusetts, number 7.
And 8?
Number 8 is Lindenhurst, Illinois.
When's the next Massachusetts town?
Number 9, Clinton, Massachusetts.
Where, Clinton?
Clinton. I think Franklin, Duxbury is number 16.
Franklin made it, yeah.
18 is Sharon. Yeah, Franklin's on here someplace. You gotta go pretty far down.
Sorry, Bob.
Bob, I remember you telling us you work in Mayberry, so. Agreed.
You know, I had the opportunity to go to the Lions meeting last night, and Franklin's number 51. I had the opportunity to go to the Lions meeting last night, and I talked about this, and it's just, you know, I don't mean to embarrass Bob, but I did give, you know, credit to the police department and, you know, particularly Chief Stone and Deputy Chief Carroll for continuing the tradition of the department and creating the training opportunities and creating the professional atmosphere that we have. Obviously, as I said earlier, the town itself and the people that have chosen to live here, you know, make up the safety of the town as well. It's a relationship between the police and the town, as we see in you know, the things going around the nation. And Bob and I have had a lot of conversations about this, you know, going back to Jefferson and now Baltimore and New York. You know, but we are fortunate to have a department that is respectful. You know, they know how to manage, they know how to enforce the laws, but they are also very respectful of the people that live here and people that visit Norfolk. And we're fortunate that they do their jobs very well.
Well, I would add to that. I mean, we're one of the few towns that patrols every street pretty much every day. It just doesn't happen much anymore. And it was in an advisory board meeting, I think, where one of the advisory board members mentioned that he wanted to know why we had so many citations and it didn't reflect in the revenue. Remember that? And, Chief Stone was there, and Chief Stone said, I think his answer was very appropriate. He said, well, we're not in the business of harassing our citizens. He said, you know, if we have people that continually, you know, cause those issues, then we issue citations, excuse me, it was a number of stops versus the number of citations, and there was a huge differential. Yeah. And his point was, that's not what you guys are here for, you know, and that, you know, there are incidents like that, you just say, please slow down, thank you very much, and you move on. That we're not here, the police department's not here to hassle the citizens. I just thought, and that was in an advisory board meeting with no PR, no intent, just a statement of fact, that's the policy, and that's one of the reasons why it's such a great place to live. I mean, we don't have those issues
$20,000 of revenue is not going to offset the loss in goodwill.
You bet. You bet.
You're gonna have. I think people, and I don't want to put words in the expert's mouth, but I think I'm sure people learn lessons by getting pulled over. It's not the $100 fine or the $50 fine. It's getting pulled over and having a conversation. And I may have gotten pulled over a long time ago. And
Before your town administrator.
I think it was last week.
well before I was town administrator. And you know that sends a message, and you don't necessarily need the dollar fine to go along with it to learn the lesson. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys do a phenomenal job, and thank you very, very much.
Agreed, outstanding. Major asset to our town.
Yeah.
Now another major asset, we can bring Bob up now, because DPW is also a major asset.
Well, Bob is a contributor to the no tickets because we got so many potholes and. No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't say that, no, no, I.
You told me, you wrote that right here.
Thank you.
Bob is the solution to those issues.
Yes,
How are you, Bob?
Good, thanks.
Good.
He was doing fine.
yeah, sorry for the dig.
Oh,
Welcome.
come on. That wasn't a dig. He knows it was sending fun.
Yeah, they did, that's it. We've talked about that on Lake Street, it's a damper. Remember there, yeah, the potholes, So,
Thank you for letting me come by. Just figured it'd be a good time going into the construction season to update the board here and anybody listening with regards to the Department of Public Works. And anywhere along the line, I'll just try to breeze through this, and any questions or detailed answers you want, just see if I can answer those. I'd like to start with water if we could.
yeah. You got the report? Do we have a report?
We do have a report.
I don't know if I'm jumping the gun. Am I
What,
jumping
well,
the
there's a handful of reports. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I was,
gun? Go ahead,
Well,
sorry.
you were doing one and we were prioritizing or identifying sources.
right. So, you know, just to run you through the history of just the last couple of years, when we've really got to moving on in search of new water, new source development. You know, in 2013, we started, we did some work up on the Lawrence Street site which is a privately owned site. It's not town-owned land. And we did some testing up there and decided to hold off on that for a handful of reasons. But then, moving forward, we had some concern with us coming out of the recession or the economic downfalls that we had in a few years back with the land. Norfolk started developing again, and we have a concern with water. So we asked our consultants to put together a water assessment report, and that's been out for the better part of 2 years now. You've seen it, and encourage anybody to read that. And that just tells us what we have for a system, what we have for supply, what we need, and where the town's growth is, and delves into permitting with the DEP and so forth. And then from there, we did a groundwater exploration summary. And what we did with that was we decided to have some direction. And what we did was go around and we mapped town-owned land throughout the town of Norfolk, and we came up with a good handful of sites that are possible to even explore for water. As you know, we need a radius of 400 feet. As you also know, if it's town-owned land, we don't have any land acquisition or costs that go along with that. So through this process, and after we did a mapping of the town, we had a meeting and we took the sites and discussed which ones we should go after and explore. Different reasons for...
Do you want questions out? I'm sorry, just because when you mentioned, because I thought we had one meeting where we definitely, I understand the town-owned land, no land acquisition cost, but I thought we were going to look at, I don't know how hard that was, but every possible source for water, meaning if it was privately held or town-held. Did we not do that, or?
Well,
was that
the
not-
first one the smartest one would be that if we don't have to pay $500,000 for land, let's go look and see what we have first. That's always going to be a second step.
Okay. I just thought we were going to have that identified at some point. I thought, because I think they asked us here when we were talking to the folks at Upland Game, they said, I thought we told them we'd look at private and public. I understand
Right.
the economics of it, but.
So, you can consider that, maybe another step, but if we luck out with something that we already own, it's a no-brainer. But, we're aware of some other private sites, but it does come with a cost, and we still have that in mind. But, so anyways, we broke it down to a couple of sites. In the report, we came up with a handful of sites, just to name a few. I think we got, there's a site, the Stop River site, which is by the prison, town-owned land. Harold Campbell Forest was a site that we considered. Off of Grove Street, there's a little site down behind, actually, it's up behind here, but if you go down Grove Street, there's a piece of property that Cronin owns. It was a buildable lot.
Up near Toils End.
Right. And we spotted that on the map, and that was one that drew some interest.
It's
And
on
then,
it's in between the railroad tracks, Keeney Pond, and Grove Street. So it's right up against the tracks.
Oh, it's a different place then?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I didn't think
I
it-
thought you were talking about the lot on the other side. Okay.
another
Is there
one,
enough land there?
Yeah.
there is. And you know what? I don't have the acreage for these sites, but there is land. What we did when we
All
we
of
did
these
the
have
mapping.
400-foot radius on them. So.
Right.
Okay.
So it was easy to spot. It was a good way to map it. So,
No,
and
I'm
another one we
sure.
were looking at was the Apple St. Forest. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's abuts the Fox Run development off of Maple Street.
Apple St. Forest.
Yeah, I never
called
heard that
apples.
term either.
I
Yeah.
never heard of it.
No kidding. But it's one we then decided that we won't spend the money and go in there. But it's there, and so we put that to the side. And then we also just took another look at Gold Street. We dug out some old reports where a few years ago we made an small investment into drilling and testing Gold Street, and we came up with some clean water there. And that permit has since run out, but it wasn't a lot of water. There's a couple of testing. You can do a 2.5-inch test, and I'll get into that if you'd like to. 2.5-inch test to see if it's worthy of a 4-inch test, and if that really produces in a prolonged testing, then we go to the DEP and we go through the permitting and do an 8-inch prolonged test. And, all of these come through time and money.
Doesn't it, and we looked at this once before, and it was many years ago, in terms of the cost of incrementally doing those tests versus going right to an 8-inch.
Right. So I'm going right
Oh,
right to
okay,
there next.
sorry.
Good, great question, though, because that segues me right into what we're asking for.
You're welcome.
So,
After you set them up on the potholes, you're gonna help them out on the
I
lawn.
I just wanted to let you know that, we spent a few dollars. I have the dollar figures to get us up to the point where we are right now. Now we want to go and secure some money through the town meeting and retained earnings, which we have, without going to bond for. And
That summarizes what's on there.
we want to test on 4 of these sites.
But that doesn't address Jim's point about going to 8-inch, so these are still 4-inch tests.
Well, they are, but you got to do the 4 to find out when you're going to do the 8.
Oh, okay.
When you're talking, you jump from 2 to 4, it's significant, and then when you jump to 8, you're talking a couple $100,000.
Oh, okay.
So you want to really be sure that you're at a ripe site for drilling. So what we did was, and I think you might have that in front of you, I'm not sure, but the cost for,
Yeah.
did you pass that out, Jack, or do I have?
did.
it? Okay, so, right.
You with me?
So is the plug here the 2015 new source approval process?
Actually, that's not the piece of paper. Excuse me?
No, it doesn't add up to the 108.5. Is that the plug?
No, there's no, don't even bother adding the math on this. These are just separate costs. Where I have an underline, under like $20,000, I added those two, but that's kind of what, through the years, what we've spent on each individual. So we've come up with 4 sites, and there's a cost.
So the 108.5 is for the 4 sites.
It is. And what that's going to fund in the field is that we go to 4 sites. On each site, we drill a 2.5-inch well. And we see what kind of results we have there. That will include water testing quality and volume for as much as 2.5 inches will provide. So there's a cost breakdown for that, and, I can, if you want, I can itemize that. From that point, what we're going to do is go to out of the 4 sites, we'll probably choose 2. Might choose 3, but my feeling is we'll choose either 1 or 2. And that's going to be a 4-inch test, and that's a 5-day test process. So we go from a 24-hour process in the 2.5, we see something good, we see something clean, and we go to the 4-inch, and that's for 5 days we'll pump. And there's a cost associated with that. And I'm not sure if you have it, I hope you do.
You do, it's in here.
Good.
You got it, it's here.
So then after that, what we'll do is, there's other costs for, preparation for the next step, and if you add everything up, it's a conservative budget of $108,000, based on 4 2-inch, 2 4-inch, and then the going through the permitting process. That also takes us through a time frame where that's going to take most of the summer and get us very close to the fall town meeting, where if we find something that we're ready to go for, the timing's right now, then we'll come back into you and we'll tell you the results of that. You'll know as we go along anyways. You'll be asking and we'll be telling you. But at that time, we'll be asking for another sum of money, not to be determined right now. But
How much do we have in retained earnings, Jack?
That's what I was just going to look up. I thought it was 600.
can I tell you?
Yeah, you
It's,
can.
because I did call Julie on this. We have over $760,000 right now. That's confirmed as of last year.
So that's available to us until June, and then,
To date, when she goes through her books and the year not being over, revenues not all being in, and costs not all being expended, we have almost $1 million right now that you couldn't use, but because it's going to change before it gets certified. So,
That'll be certified in October, right?
right.
yep.
So you can take the time and look through this. The costs that go beyond that are here. I didn't add them up for you, but you'll see.
What are the new costs, Steph? I was just looking at that. Is that page 2? I mean, the 108.5 buys this, buys the...
108, well, if you go to step 1 from the front page,
Yeah, that's 108.
that's we go to a budget of $52,500 to do 5 2.5-inch tests.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you add that,
Yeah.
if you multiply that together, that's $51,000 for the step 1 budget. Step 2 would be that we'll take 2 sites,
Gotcha.
and I believe
It's 25.
that's $25,000
Per site.
per site.
Yep.
And if we do 1, it'll only be 1. If for some reason we think we need to do 3, well, the budget's not in there for that. We're just, we're doing the best we can to keep the cost to, we think we can achieve what we want there. And from thereafter, there's, the site exam and review pump test proposal, and that's $2,500, and
Like the step
at that
4.
point, that's the last bit of spending. It jumps up to $190,000.
That's for an
And that's
8-inch,
what-
that's the 8-inch pipe.
That's the 8-inch, that's getting the DEP fully involved, moving forward on a site that, because we did the 4-inch pump testing, prolonged 5 days, that we're gonna be pretty sure that we're not chasing good money with bad money.
So that's going to be the one site you choose for all
right,
intents and
yep.
purposes. And you'll know this by September?
Probably before that, but then there's some paperwork, and that, there's a time frame for that if you read into this. And that should bring us close to town meeting.
And Bob, your assumption is of all these proposed sites that, based on geology and stuff, you looked at one or more than one will likely pan out? Because you won't even spend the 108 if because you won't get to the 4-inch if the 2 inches fail,
Right.
right?
Right.
Not that it's not bad, it's
Right,
not
but again,
wasted money,
it goes
but-
back to your original question, Scott. These are town-owned properties.
Right.
I could tell you maybe 2 or 3 more that are very interesting to us, but they're owned by somebody else. So, maybe we don't need to go do that.
Right, we're trying to say, I get you,
Yeah, for sure.
If these work out, but if not, so you have a plan B and C,
Yeah.
potentially, because we need water.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
we do.
And is somewhere in this still going to be a potential future discussion with Rentham?
Well, that's part of, as part of this plan. This is a plan that we want to make sure that we focus on and we go forward with. But there are other action items that we're going to do, too. That's a couple of the ones, and I already had a conversation with Rentham last week. We're going to talk to Rentham about a long or short-term deal, whatever, at a wholesale rate, to maybe open the gates for 50,000 gallons a day, and times $365,000 a year. They know that they're going to have a budget. In knowing, if you rent them, that you have a budget of $90,000 coming in a year, that of course will, hopefully that'll encourage them to lower the rate and we'll get a wholesale cost. The next town would be to talk with, and we've talked a little bit, Jack and I, with Franklin. We have an interconnect with Franklin. These are things that we can turn on, and we have at any time that we want. We're just talking about an intermunicipal agreement for cost.
Well, we have Millis now, too.
Well, we have Millis to look at, but we don't have
But
a
didn't they-
physical connection.
But didn't they,
We did a, not a full engineered study of the cost, but we did do we had Steve and we had Phil look at the cost.
Right, and it made
of
sense.
connecting. It makes sense, but there are some challenges with Franklin and with Millis, particularly being that they both have, there's pressure issues, but there's also fluoride. They both have
in excess of
fluoride.
what we do?
We don't have any. They have fluoride, and they,
Fluoride, I'm sorry.
yeah,
Oh,
they have
I-
fluoride in their water. So, that kind of, I mean, we need to have that discussion. Do we want to go down that path of
Yeah.
going to town meeting and talking about, because at least we've heard some people say that you need to go to town meeting to be able to add fluoride to the water. That's
How
not
about
just
the
a
Rentham
commissioner.
State School?
Yeah, you said it just right. I kind of disagree. I think fluoride's a great thing, and I think the people got
I
a
think
hold
it's
of
a
it,
great
they'd
thing
love it.
too,
But there is the notification, there is that need to inform everybody. But here's another thing to think of. We're not connected to Millis, and if we were to go directly connect to Millis, it's going to cost us $500,000 to $750,000.
Just to the connection?
And then we start paying for the water. And that, put the pipe in, put a pump station in, pave the road. So if we can, in 5 or 7 years, get our own, we need to have our own water. No matter what we do with anybody else, we need to have water to call our own. And that's the direction when I first started out on. So by that time, we might have our own source, and I'm hoping that we do. So why put $750,000
No, I
in
agree.
when we can just open a gate right now, pay a wholesale rate, and so we talked to Rentham, and Rentham was real cooperative, good neighboring town, and they're going back to their selectmen, and he's going to get back to me maybe this week.
The state school, we had some internal discussions, and with Steve Olson included in the conversation, and we kind of ran up into a wall just as the conversation evolved, really trying to think how to, how would we package a deal? And I don't want to get into, how we would eventually propose negotiating, but really Steve brought some questions forward that made sense to me, and honestly, Bob and I aren't quite on the same page as this, so I'll preface it with that, but, Steve pointed out why would, what, he kind of looked at it from the point of view, what would the state school's incentive be to turn it over? And really what he was saying was, we think we can just take the well from them and provide them water at a discount or even free. But really the cost, they're not going to, if we start talking to them about the incentive of why they would want to do that, you got to think about the cost avoidance that they would have. And the cost avoidance would not only be the well cost, the electricity of pumping the water and future capital costs of replacing the well, which they may or may not consider, but the ongoing cost of pumping the well and
Maintaining it, everything.
maintaining it and water, that's one, but it's not a significant cost. If you also consider the cost of the, what do you call it, the delivery, the cost of maintaining the lines, the distribution system, because I'm not willing to take over the cost of the distribution system, and I don't think any of you would want to take over the maintaining their pipes in the road, because that's,
It's an old system.
well, it's probably an old system, and we can do an evaluation of it and think, but I can almost, I'd put some money down on it that it is an old system. There's going to be the cement and the asbestos lines and all that stuff. So in order for them to, when you go back to that cost avoidance conversation, they're going to have to maintain a staff and they're going to have to maintain a budget to maintain that distribution system. That's really going to be their bigger cost rather than the cost of the well. So that's where the conversation went. So that's why, to me anyway, it's not as attractive as I originally had thought it was. Doesn't mean we can't, knuckle down on this one some more, but
No, but, well, there might be, we could pay them for the water, too.
yep, yeah, that's true.
Counterpoint. Agree, again, with everything, but some other things you might want to consider is, too, that, first of all, the well site's in the town of Norfolk, and it'd be great if we could just take over the well site and provide them water with a guarantee that they don't have to worry about source water anymore. If for some reason, and I always thought that we would take over the whole system, but a little smarter for the conversation, because now I understand some of the problems would get into. But that population is shrinking. I don't think we need to maintain the entire water lines. Water lines last for, 100 years. We could, just do some leak detection and find out exactly what it is that we're up against. And a good thing is they have 2 storage tanks there. They probably have 1 million gallons worth of storage, which also supplies pressure. Sitting up on the hill, I don't know if you know that area, but when you go down there, they're up on the hill, and that's an asset value that's incredible too, when you talk about millions of dollars. They might even want us to buy into the system. When you get on our water system, if you're a house, you pay $2,600 to get into the system. So they probably have 20 million, now I'm getting back to, I'm going to the other side. Now they probably have $20 million worth of water assets in there that was paid for, maybe not today, but along the way. Were they willing to get that up, give that up for just free water? So the conversation, it has to be had, and it'll be really interesting to see where they come from.
And we should put every variable on the table. I understand your point. You may be right. I have no idea. I know it's an older system. It's been there a long time.
Are
But
we talking just the system within the complex or the whole, rather, it's just within that complex?
Just
but
within
also-
their complex.
Okay.
Yeah, they have their own
But it's a big
well. Yeah, within
complex.
that
No, it's a big, I'm not saying, I'm not,
but they have a closed system.
yeah, okay, I'm not making light of it.
It's not part of Rentham system, no.
Okay, that's what I mean. So we know it's a finite system.
Right.
It's big, but
Yeah.
And
it's not the entire town.
it's literally right next to one of our lines.
Well, we had a
connected.
connection with them, we disconnected it.
Okay.
I wasn't part of that decision, but it was because it was continuously leaking. Here's a third angle of this. When I first thought about this, I said, why wouldn't they want us to just maintain the water line and get free water? That overhead would disappear, and it would make the DEP so happy not to have to drill another hole, get into another aquifer, because it's already existing. there's this thing called optimizing, where they want you to balance your wells so you don't just suck this one dry and do this. And we have Spruce Road right next to it, so we can kind of balance the way water's taken from our aquifers. DEP thinks it's a splendid idea. I'm pretty sure that they do anyways.
They do. They don't want to help us get it. I mean, they know it's another agency. They don't want to, they just say,
Well,
oh, that's your problem to get it.
It's sad that that's
They
the
may be
case, if
happy
that
with
is the case, but until they say that to us, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. The other thing is, why they might not want to do it is, suppose that their clientele, I understood that when the Medfield Hospital and the Foxborough Hospital ceased to exist, the clientele came to Rentham, and that extended the life of the Rentham Hospital there. Eventually, and then what I heard was that hospital is going to stay open until the last client occupies it. But if that's only 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, what are they going to do with the land? And if they have the land, are they going to give up the water for a development? What is that going to be? Is it going to be a small college? Is it going to be a development? So now I can see why they may not want no part of it. So they're giving up their future. I just don't know.
Doesn't hurt to have the conversation.
Oh, no, it has to
All the
happen.
right people. Isn't that a problem too? We don't know who to talk to.
I mean, we've tried to have and I'm all for having the conversation, but we've tried to have the conversation through Senator Ross's office, and we've been stonewalled, so it's.
But all I'm asking, like, do we know, is there a Jack Hathaway? Do we know a name of an individual, he or she, that?
Yeah.
You do?
I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, there's an executive director over there.
And we tried through Richard, we just called them or gone over, yeah?
Through Richard's office, and
But,
Well, we went
yeah,
the political
that's-
route
Right,
first
yeah.
time.
So-
that was a little scary, because I think the communication ended up with a college intern making the phone call.
Yeah, it was kind of a misunderstanding to some extent.
Yeah,
maybe.
we
It
need to-
wasn't necessarily presented.
Couldn't it go executive, you personally to this gentleman or lady, or us?
a couple of years ago.
So when do you start?
When can you give me the money? No, so there's an article, and if it's voted for that, the article is a vote to see if we can transfer money. Is it the article always identify the price? Because we do
Yeah.
have that, so we're talking 180,000, whatever
So
it
we
is.
could, if we wanted to do this, we could transfer 108,000 from retained earnings, the water department retained earnings to a project line
Right.
in the water department budget. We could do that in the transfers.
As part of this cost pricing, we've already gone out through our consultant with quotes. So we know these prices are right on the money, and we just haven't selected a drill company yet. But we're ready to go. I'd say there's a couple of other things that we need to do, and that's we need to communicate with our Conservation Commission. Got to be careful where we trample, and just get everybody on board so there's no stopping us when we get
Stop River would probably, but the other two sites, I don't think.
Yeah, that's my recollection too, Stop River, from my Board of Health days. If I recall, Medfield, they draw water from somewhere not too far.
I don't know, we need to cross prison property, so we need to get, you know what we're talking about on this particular
I
site?
don't know exactly where.
This is across the street from the prison,
Yeah,
like behind their.
Clark and Main Street, across from the
Driveway
prison.
there.
Looks like
I know
it's
what
all
you
wet
mean.
out there, but there isn't a level playing field out there that we can get equipment on. But we need to go through, and we need to get a right of entry from the prison, and I don't think there's any problem. We've had a conversation with Andy Bakanowski. He had some environmental concerns, so we'll, be upfront with all that stuff, so. Figures too, because that's probably the jackpot. If we had to guess, and we can't see below ground, but
Well, do you need a vote from, I mean, this is a transfer, so it goes to town meeting.
Yeah, it goes to town meeting, we just want to make sure you okay with us asking for the transfer.
Well, you usually talk about the transfers then at a town meeting anyway.
Yeah, so with the advisory board. But this is a big one.
Well, I support it.
I'm fine with it, yeah. We need it,
Yeah, I support it, I mean, because I'm not hearing that there's any other really attractive options here, and this could, who knows how long this could take to ever negotiate anything with Rentham State Hospital and the state agencies, so.
I don't know if Bob has sent you that other document. I know he and I looked at it, but we'll forward you that other document too that talks about the other action steps that Bob talked about. But it does lay out in there that, there are short-term solutions and long-term solutions. And, some of the short-term solutions that I think are attractive to us, Bob's already taken action on, and that's building up negotiating a better relationship with Rentham through purchasing a set amount of water, so that they, I think part of their hesitation in the past, and I don't want to jump into their heads, but has been that we've never guaranteed that we're going to take a certain amount of water. It's always been on an emergency basis. Now we're taking the approach that we're going to guarantee them that we're going to take a certain amount of water each year.
Now they can budget it. It's
So
good
they
for
can
them.
budget for that, and hopefully they'll lower that cost and not just give it to us at the residential rate, because we're not residential users. There's no transmission lines for them to worry about for us. There's,
That makes sense.
so we're doing that. We're going to still, look at particularly Franklin, continue to have discussions with them, and continue to explore the Millis connection. But, and then in Bob's own words, he really, his mantra back to me is always, we got to look out for Norfolk number one, and that's the long-term solution, which is getting another well. Because we don't want to have, 30 years from now, we don't want to be, as we build up our usage, we don't want to be relying more and more upon the other towns. We want to be able to draw that water on our own and control our own destiny. Unless we can enter into a real, rock-solid relationship with those folks where they're going to guarantee, but
They have growth too, so you're right. I don't
they
think
have
how they
growth
could
too,
do
so
that
they're going to
either,
back
right.
out of the deal at some point,
Eventually, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, is it fair to say that, you've got step one, step two, you've got a few steps here,
Yep.
that, after we get to that point, at least we understand what's in the ground and what our options really are, that we reassess that situation with Rentham State Hospital and see where we are at that point, and whether it makes sense to continue with the, the 5-day pump test at that point,
Yep.
Are we any further along with any of those other options? I'm not saying that any of them would necessarily rise to the level of, delaying the pump test, but they might.
Right. I think each step of the way here we'll evaluate, because we had a lot of conversation, and we altered the plan a couple times, just based on potential outcomes. We had laid out, going 4 sites, and then 4 sites, and then 4 sites, and so we narrowed that down over the last couple of weeks as we evaluated this process. Obviously, as we add data into this, we look at the first 4 sites, and we talk about Rentham and the state school, but particularly when we look at the results of the first 4 sites, one may be, head and shoulders above the other, so we may only go to the next step with 1 site.
So you might not need the whole entire 108, 500 initiative.
Right, and then if not, we'll have lots of lunches and stuff.
You mentioned Gold Street in this. I'm trying to remember, but aren't there some rules as to the number of primary wells you can have on a single site?
Right. There is, and we've, we talked to our consultant, we talked to environmental partners about it, and there's like a radius. And once you get outside that radius, it's considered another permit, another well site. Inside that radius, it could be considered a well field if you continue to, get some supplemental water from the same area. So, you're right, it is, and, that's a hurdle. It'd be nice, there's a well out there right now that's producing like 175 gallons a minute or something like that. And if we could just bring that over, just put a pipe in the ground and bring that over and just put a little fence around it and stuff like that, it'd be great, but we can't.
Right.
That would be just supplemental water, good, clean water, but it's not big enough to build a pump station around and a building and treatment facility for, not facility, but, the UV and the treatments that we put in it for 175 gallons. But I was thinking, and if you could look at it, we have Gold Street here, and it doesn't matter what direction, we have Gold Street here, 70 feet from that, we have a Gold Street 1A, and that's a supplemental well that gives us like 150 gallons or something like that. But when it's going, it also produces iron and manganese. So what we do is we turn on Gold Street, and we only take like 50 gallons a minute out of that, and we blend it, and it gets below the levels of concern, and it's okay with the DEP. So we are supplementing Gold Street with it. So you get 300 from Gold Street, and these numbers aren't perfect. 300 from Gold Street here, 70 feet away, we get 175. And then when you go out about 1,500 feet, or another whatever feet in the same direction, that only came up with about 125 gallons. So we're thinking that maybe we go in this direction a little bit and we put another, well, we're asking for funds to do 2.5-inch wells somewhere away from going in that area. One way or the other, Gold Street's going to need some cooperation with the planning board. I mean, not the planning board, but there's a developer there that's going to gift some land to us so we can create a circle to get that 400-foot radius. But that's what's going on with Gold Street.
Okay.
One other thing that we didn't talk about, too, is I think you all know that we have the Mill River site. And the Mill River site was in competition with, right on the Franklin border with well 4 and 5 that belongs to Franklin. Just to give you the idea, well 4 was drawing directly down on Kingsbury Pond. That became a concern. Not sure what the concern on is well 5. Maybe it just doesn't produce as much or as good or something like that, or it's something like that. But right across the town line where our Mill River site is, that thing was gushing. I think full bore it was doing like 1,500 gallons a minute. Well, once we started testing on that, we said, oh, great, this is good and stuff. It affected their well, which is one of the wells that affected Kingsbury Pond. So something like this was going on, and the DEP said, you can work something out with Franklin. Maybe we can see about operating that well. So now we're talking with Franklin, and we're using that word optimizing again. So if we can put Mill River to work and somehow manifold them all together, and we can work one well against the other, balance the waters underneath, which doesn't have any effect on any other water bodies. That's smart, it's encouraging, and Franklin is doing they're doing a study on that right now with their own consultants, so we're waiting to hear from them what's going on. So
That
that's
sounds like that
also
has
in the works.
potential.
It sure does.
It does, but it's very frustrating dealing with them.
With,
Franklin.
Just Franklin.
We've had water issues with them
It's
over
like
many,
dealing-
many
it's
years.
like negotiating a deal with your big brother. I mean, because they have 8 wells, so they have a lot of cards to play. You know, and we can get so far down the conversation, and then they say, well, we don't really need this. It's like,
but they know we need it, but they won't be quiet. Yeah, he's saying they won't cooperate.
yeah, I'm not saying that they're talking to us and we're going, but it's you know,
Well, this one might actually provide some benefit to them.
Exactly.
yeah.
This option, as opposed to just benefiting us, this one might actually be mutually beneficial.
I hope, but then at least, okay.
Okay,
That's water, and I was going to see if you guys wanted to talk a little bit about road construction.
absolutely.
Yeah, well, Diana know that.
I've got the right piece of paper here.
I got another one, Bob.
What do you got?
Oh, but I got my notes.
I did bring it, Jack. So, I got it, thanks. So, with regard to road construction and what's going on, we have,
You gonna give it to them?
He has
I only had I was just gonna go through it and we had a conversation about this, remember?
Yeah, I remember that. Yes, I do.
About those-
I don't recall seeing anything in the packet.
No, there's nothing in the packet.
My notes, too, just so you know.
I'm really glad you two guys did a rehearsal.
You know, fortunately, at least one of us is speaking English.
Well, these are just my notes. Now you have them, and now the questions are going to come up because it's probably in a format that you got 1,000 questions. But really
was
what
clear.
we've done was, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some road construction that starts with a couple, last year we had a couple of approved articles. And with these, with the equipment at the top of that page, I think it is at the top of that page, we had $300,900 for equipment purchase. It's not road construction, but I just want to let you know that we do have the backhoe. We got that last year, and now we took delivery on the truck just a few days ago. And after that's paid, there'll probably be $1,000 left to buy an ignition keychain or something.
Pretty good pricing estimates.
It went right to the end. Paul's here.
Mr. Vito.
I quizzed him. He's the one that put the specs together for this and gave me the first numbers, and that's the balance that he's telling me he has left. So that wasn't bad
bad.
at all.
How's the new truck, Paul? Is it out on the road? Yeah? I was over there today. I wish I should have looked for it.
Is it on the road?
Yeah, but the plates, 2 days ago.
It's all inspected, right? It's got the inspection sticker and stuff, so it's street legal?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just making sure.
How much is the lettering, $1,000?
How appropriate.
Is it lettered yet? Did you get it lettered yet?
No, lettering will be, I'm hoping lettering the end of next week,
Come.
along with I have 3 other vehicles with lettering.
999.
There it is. I gotta. So the other thing, through the articles, we had road repair, and we were approved for $285,000 through town meeting, $285,000. We have a balance left of $253 because we really didn't do anything there. We spent about $30,000 on Main Street last year on sidewalks only, from Medway down to Canterbury. That's where we put the retainer wall there, and we did some terracing. So that worked out pretty well. So these are. That's a project that's still open and that will get going probably when school's out. Moving to Chapter 90, we still have, we have 6 projects still open. And when I say projects, not all of them are necessarily street projects. They could be, money that you approved us for asset management, processing of gravels, or it could be road construction. So open projects right now, we're still working with $192,661, and that's what it's going to take to complete these 6 projects.
Which streets are those, Bob?
For instance, we have Bridget and Culvert improvements for Lawrence Street. Do you remember we had that?
Yeah,
We
I
had
do.
that along with Diamond Street. Diamond Street was spent and a little bit overspent. We still have money for the improvement to the Lawrence Street Bridge. Haven't spent a penny of it as a result of some developments going on, and we don't. We're looking at the bridge and it's holding up and so forth, but we do have that money still there. At any time, we could spend it and go forward, or we could give it back to Chapter 90 and reallocate it to something else.
And we may have some grant money for that, too, from
I thought we got 50 grand.
500.
500.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Was that the study?
for
But
that
that
and
was-
for
City, yeah.
Main Street City Mills, yeah, but we haven't, that hasn't actually come into legislation yet, so it's still,
Oh, okay.
well, maybe it's legislation, but not
Funded or?
not funded, so it's one step closer. We're never closer to getting it, but we haven't got it yet.
Other projects that we have are, we have some money left over for cobblestone walkways. We phased the walkways in the downtown to replace the brick with cobblestones. So far, it's working according to the way we thought it would, and we still have money to finish it up this year. I don't know if we'll quite finish it up 100%. There's a couple of walkways that, like, going in for the entrance of this here, the entrance of the library. I'm very concerned about getting the other roundabout done in front of Dunkin' Donuts and the other one on Route 115 that are really going to tie up traffic. So what I'm trying to do is, if we're going to do this, maybe make a mess of it all in 1 week. Let's do the Main Street project that I'll talk about, that we have money through the article. Do the cobbles all at once. I'll talk to the chiefs and, see what their opinions are, and just make it a horror show for a week.
Right.
Or we can drag it out and do one time and one and the other, and so there's some thinking that's got to be done there, but I saved the worst for last, if you want to look at it that way.
What's your latest thinking with regard to the bond, which had involved Stop and Shop, and I'm not sure in terms of ownership changes, but, we were going to meet with those folks again, and they called off the meeting, couldn't be there or
Right.
something, it was last minute, this was a year ago, or...
It was you and I, and I don't know who else, Jeff, and they kind of maybe walked away from it, but to me, it's foolproof. They haven't approved, they have a bond out there for that. I don't know what the balance is. That street is not accepted. It's by law, it has to be built according to the approved drawings. Now we're going off subject a little bit, but we should get together with them and get that. The street's starting to deteriorate, so it's going to get more painful for them, because when we want to accept a street, we want a street that's like in brand-new condition. Well, that's starting to spall, and the bricks are getting worse, and we've gone up there just because it's a safety issue, and done a little patchwork here and there. But I'd say this would be a good year to get them to the table and make some decisions.
So the crosswalks that were involved in that project, and are part of that bond, are any of those on approved, accepted roads? I mean, right here in front of Walgreens and such, or is that still?
That's their crosswalk to pay for.
Because it hasn't been accepted yet, right?
Yeah, well,
So-
right. So if you go down Independence and you take a right, from that point forward, any crosswalk that goes up to Meeting House, and just a little bit past that up to is part of their responsibility because it's simply unaccepted.
Yep.
There's people using it, and so it's, right now, it's being used, obviously, for
Yep.
for business and so forth. So I see it, I don't wait to call them, say, hey, come out here and do it, fix a pothole. I just go ahead and do it. They can't complain, but,
So I guess the short answer is, it's more relevant to the planning board than this board, although if there's any activities in the B1 here in the core that we're aware of, that we should make sure that we're all aligned in terms of when to move ahead, perhaps, and call the bond or some
Well, if
portion
it
of
was,
the bond or whatever.
it's
action.
really no different than any subdivision.
No,
It's-
right,
It's planning
right,
board, and
right.
if you can grab strength from the selectmen, of course, but I think if that's your question, but
How far behind are they in this?
Well, I mean, it just goes back to the whole
Yeah, I mean, it's been
issue,
years, hasn't
the
it?
issue of, when we get in our grocery store, right? So the grocery store never came, so the project really has never been completed. But we put something together with the help of the planning board, engineering consultant. Bob was involved, I was out there, walking the road, and we put something together, which was, I think, a pretty fair and balanced punch list.
right.
And we were looking for, it was Stop and Shop, or their agents at that point were,
Well, they don't own
were
the land
asked
anymore.
to.
So does that obligation
Well, that's,
transfer?
then now it's
They-
become more complicated.
There's a right-of-way and there's private property issues. The right-of-way is still, we still have a bond for the right-of-way.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the sidewalks, and, which is in the right-of-way and stuff, we had a punch list for it. We
Yeah.
talked about the punch list, but that punch list can get useless if 10 years go by and we don't accept the street.
Is that bond still with, who is that bond with? Stop and Shop?
Planning, it's a tri,
No, I understand that.
I'm pretty sure it's with
Who's on
Stop
the
and
line
Shop.
for it?
I'm
Stop
pretty
and
sure
Shop?
it's Stop and Shop.
Okay.
I think there's gonna be a legal process if they, I don't know how they could give up the right-of-way to the guy that brought the properties there, although he's thinking that
Yeah.
the street belongs to him too, but I don't think he understands.
Yeah,
When you make a purchase like that, I don't see how you don't understand
yeah.
the process.
I would think that would move to him, but I may be naive in
No.
that thought. It does not.
Well, if it
Well, he
did,
bought
then
the-
we need
but
to
he-
be notified legally, because you just can't do that without talking to us. Nobody knows of that
Yeah,
happening,
it's a
so
good
I don't
project
think
for
so.
Ray maybe to sink his teeth into.
Yep.
And we did check to make sure that there was no expiration on the bond, because that became one of my concerns, because it had been going on so long. So, I mean, it's one thing to be strategic in terms of timing, when you do things. You hate to, take some action and then have to rip something up within a couple of years, and we certainly weren't
Well,
interested in
but-
doing that. But at some point now,
Don't you think we're kind of past that point?
well, I guess, hindsight's 20/20, Jim.
Oh, no, no,
So let's
I'm
move
not
forward.
talking about today.
And that's why I brought it up.
Yeah. I mean,
How much
it-
is the
it
bond,
would-
how much is in the bond for? I mean, is it enough to do what you want to do?
Bonds are always adjustable, can always be revised, that's in our bylaws, so we can do it. But right now, I don't know if there's a few $100,000 in there, but at one point it was done by PSC, it was calculated.
'Cause I
There's
think
there's
the-
more that goes into this.
I mean, logic, I may be dead wrong, but logic would tell me that you're not going to get a whole lot of response from Stop and Shop.
Well, and I'm no planning board expert, but isn't part of the problem, though, the original specs called for bricks, and now we're going to cobblestone? That complicates the whole conversation.
Well, the problem is the material of construction, they were able to install a cementatious type of brick material, which is known not to withstand the harsh winters here, and, we found that out the hard way. So this goes back many, many years to when the project was first approved and all the plans were approved. So, one idea was to look at a more durable brick. We also looked at thermoplastic. Bob put quite an effort into that. And then the planning board, working with Bob, eventually we rallied around the idea of the cobblestone, and that got broad support, you know, with Bob, the board, and I think the residents of the town are pretty happy with the direction that we've gone in the town center, and I think the vision is that we would continue that. So I would think that can be negotiated, but, you know,
Let me
it's a
ask
matter
a
of getting
question.
the right people to the table.
It's a naive question, because why, I mean, and I'm not talking about hindsight now, just here we are today. Why would we not want to consider pulling that bond? And we do the work,
Yeah,
and
that's it.
do as we
And
see
let them
fit
come
to
back.
do,
Yeah. Today.
rather than even getting into this kind of a dialogue, because you know they're not gonna, I mean, the reality is you're gonna be talking about this next year.
I think that it may very well make sense. I think there was always a thought that we might be able to develop some type of project, you know, with those folks at some point in time, but they've since sold the land, and perhaps now the situation is such that it does make sense just to pull the bond. I don't know all the details associated with that, but, you know, certainly it would seem to be appropriate to invite them back to the table, which we tried to do, and at the last minute, they said that they weren't available, and so it didn't happen. That was last fall, and, you know, I think it was last fall, right, Bob? And the construction season was pretty
So,
much
I
ending.
mean, clearly you've got to have a notification problem. I understand all that, but it just seems to me that it would make sense.
Yeah, I think it's a good,
Knowing
I
the
think we have a
long
planner
history
now,
of-
Jim,
yeah.
you know, and I
It
think
would
that's
make
a,
sense
that's
to
a
say, look,
great
you know,
one for the
come visit the
planner
next
to-
30 days, or we're
Yeah.
going to pull the bond and finish the project.
Yeah. Well, we know what we want to do. It's just a matter of coming up with something which is viewed as comparable, you know, something that, you know, from a
think-
cost standpoint, and giving them the option to do it. And if they choose not to do it, then going ahead and
With a
calling
defined
them.
time frame,
Yeah, right,
because they'll
Right. right,
milk this forever.
right, right.
So I think
That's
it's a little bit more than just pulling a bond, because whoever, if you were a contractor, you wouldn't want your bond pulled, because then your rating goes down and it's a lifeline for, but it's stop and shop.
Given the option, I mean, but the point is that, I mean, we know from past experience that dealing with them, I mean, I've been over to see them half a dozen
Right.
times. It's just, they'll talk you to death.
Right, so all I'm saying is, just instead of going after the bond, just say, hey, listen, would you come in, why don't you just buy us out for what the project's worth according to the approved drawings? And
That's an
leave their
alternative.
insurance bond alone.
That's an alternative,
And then-
sure.
If they come in, I
And
just
if they
picture that
don't, then
coming in.
How they pay for it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
That's fine, sure.
But when you say pull a bond, that's, you know,
Well, what I'm
carefully.
talking about is get the money and get it done. Now, you know,
Exactly right.
how you, whether you pull the bond or you negotiate a deal where they write a check, that's
Yeah.
their call. They'll drag this on forever.
Yeah, but there's a couple of things that we, if we bring it up now, we'll be hit till midnight, but there's a couple of things that we need to talk about where there were some agreements along the way where we substituted out some walkways for driveway entrances or something like
But
that. and,
all
you know,
that can be
Yeah,
put on paper and worked out.
but it all adds up to a price, and we need to work that out before we name that price. And that's where,
Well, can it get on the list? I guess is what I'm asking. I mean, I know there's limited resources and limited time and all that, but it just,
I think what it may take is for Ray, and I'll be happy to provide some historical perspective as much as I can. I think other folks that have been with the planning board even longer than I have could probably, like Steve, might even have further perspective on it. But I think it's going to take somebody like Ray to just stay on top of this and coordinate perhaps a series of meetings. And then, you know, if we get to the point where these folks aren't showing up, last minute cancellation type stuff, then we have to go down the path of sending them notice that, you know, we're gonna pull the bond. It's probably.
yeah, I mean, that's been the history. You're not experiencing anything that hasn't been a pattern with these folks.
All right, where were we? Sorry.
other projects, just to answer your
Can
question,
I,
and
can I interrupt for 1 second? Because gentleman is in the back of the room, but he's knocking, he doesn't want to be on camera, so we won't point the cameras to him. But Don Hanson's here from Lions Club, and we've had a lot of conversations, and it's just the timing is perfect, that we have the Field of Flags effort being put on by the Lions Club, and
May 23rd.
May 17th to the 30th, I think, right?
Flags go in the ground on Saturday the 17th.
Oh, ceremony on the 23rd, you're
Yes.
correct,
And the
yeah.
ceremony is the following Saturday, the 23rd at 10 o'clock.
Nice.
So we will have some forms here at the clerk's office beginning tomorrow for people who are interested in purchasing a flag. But the funds are going to the Fisher House, which supports veterans and the veterans' families, while they're getting medical services. So it's a great cause. I know you guys have all been involved in it in the past.
Great cause.
And we'll be involved on the 23rd, so I just want to...
Didn't you do a mailing to all the homes?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, okay.
165, every PO box business says it should have gotten one.
It is. Yep, there you go.
I did too.
Yep,
Yeah,
I got
send
one.
it back.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great call. I remember the last one. Phenomenal.
Well, so far we got 420 responses. That was as of last Friday.
Terrific.
So, thank you, Jay, for bringing it up.
Well,
Okay.
I know you didn't want to speak, so thank you very much.
So just to move along, a couple of other things that are still open, just to remind you, is that we paved King Street and Maple Street last year, but on King Street, from the junior high down to Union Street, we didn't pave that because we're going to install a sidewalk there. And we figured in that process would rather work off the surface that's there deteriorating, so we'll do that this year. That's pretty much it for projects, the 6 projects at $192,000 that are still open. There's other things in here like pavement management and asset inventory where we approved $40,000 to map everything through GPS and GIS and put it on GIS. And that also included a GPS instrument. So there's a balance there of like $7,700. Processing materials is something that we've doing. It's a great little thing that we're doing through the solid waste, and that's we're taking our construction material, instead of paying to get rid of it somewhere, we're bringing it in, we're stockpiling it until we have enough material, and we paid to have it crushed, and we reuse it under the streets. So it's all in the recycling effort. Great program. That's pretty much that, and just recently, you remember that the state put out a winter recovery assistance program, in which case it's calculated just like Chapter 90, which means that in Chapter 90, if we got $598,000, the percentage of, I think we get 10% of that, so we got $58,900. And we're putting that together with a Chapter 90 request that you gentlemen just signed the other day.
Right.
And with that, we're going to quickly pave a handful of streets: Union Street, Fruit Street, Miller Street, parts of Park Street, and the end of Seekonk Street going into Medfield. So that's going to happen next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So a week from today, or a week from next Friday, it should be done.
And you're doing a mail-in to some of the residents, right?
Right. So I have a flyer that kind of describes what I just said to you, and we put them in everybody's mailbox so they know it's coming. Then we notify the bus companies and so forth. But, these streets are in such bad shape, you just can't individually pothole them. The process is that you got to do something with that street. So we're going to do this thin overlay application. I won't get into the details of it. You've heard it a million times. But it's going to, in all appearances, look like a brand-new street, but it isn't. There is, like I say, there's always going to be that rotting corpse underneath there. But it's going to hold that street together for 3 to 5 years, because some of these streets really need more engineering, a proposal for sidewalks. It needs some tree removal, side sloping, drainage. But we'll take that out on these streets as we go into the future over the next 3 years. That's our plan. And that will reflect in some future Chapter 90 projects.
This is kind of a continuation of the Boardman Street plan, if you remember that. And, we made a decision to go through this process that Bob's talking about. So, it's the more cost, it's not the longest term solution, but it's a good kind of
Middle
good
ground.
solution, yeah. that
It's
gets
actually
us-
held up better than you thought it would, too, hasn't it?
Breaking all the rules. I don't understand it, but it's working, so.
Don't knock it.
Don't ask.
So if you continue to look at this, if you take out that $119,000 from what we have uncommitted, and realistically, we have $602,000 in Chapter 90 funds uncommitted. You just approved the 119, but the state didn't, so they will any day. So right now, we have uncommitted funds assigned to nowhere for $481,000, roughly $895. Now, with that, that's what's there, and when we pave these streets next week, that's going to, as Butch used to say, calm down the streets so that people can travel without being aggravated and breaking wheels and springs and stuff like that, because those are the worst of the streets that are going to get that thin layer application. But then we're going to take our crew and we're going to go out and do all the winter damages. It was a horrifying winter, not so much for the snow as a lot of people think it might be. It was the prolonged frost. It trapped waters in our sumps and blew catch basins apart and just a whole bunch of ugly things going on. So we're going to take the time from when these streets are paved next week till at least school's out, and we're going to go around town and we're going to fix as much of the curbing damage we did with plows and the lawns that need to be reloomed and seeded and infrastructure repairs. And then from there, and I'm moving through this, I have a list here, and you have that same piece of paper of Chapter 90 projects for consideration. The first one there is Main Street. Although we have approved money to do Main Street this year, that was last year's survey, and that was a price to do what was wrong last year, but Main Street came apart even more. So I've added sections of Main Street that start from the Franklin Town line, City Mills, and extends all the way down to Clark Street in front of the prison. So, again, when we start to do work on the article that we have approved, and we do the cobbles and stuff, and that's at that time, just prior to that time, I'll put together a project request and ask that you approve funds to do that. So when we get on Main Street, we're doing the whole, not the whole thing, but
Right.
all that needs
Parts
to
that
be
need-
done.
yeah.
It is our Main Street, and it's not something we can just patch together and say, we'll get to it in 3 years. It's Main Street, and it needs to be fixed, so. And another consideration is, and I already mentioned to you, cobbles for the town center. I'm going to ask for another $50,000 there. And see if the planning board has any funds left in the sidewalk account. They were instrumental in giving us funds for the last 2 years, but as I mentioned to them, it was a 3-year plan, so I didn't want to eat up all that money. But we know now, after 2 years, that the cobbles are probably going to work out, and didn't want to sink a whole $250,000 or whatever the price was in 1 year and get it done and aggravate the whole population in this town, so we did it piecemeal. This is the 3rd year, so asking for $50,000 through Chapter 90 to help support that. Then there's a couple of other drainage improvements that have to be done. I just can't wait. Actually, going to start on one of them right away. And so that might sneak forward on you because there's some streets that have failed because of water popping up through it, and the asphalt's just gone, and the water's still coming down the street over at Freedom Trail. And I brought Jack out today to take a look at the culvert down by Diamond Street. There's a water crossing there, a beautiful little pond that comes out into the wetlands that feed Stony Brook. The walls are caving in. They must have just trapped water and froze.
Just before Diamond on the right?
Right.
Yeah.
Gorgeous little setting there. So I don't know how long that can wait, because if it goes before we repair it, then it's going to take the embankment with it, the street, and it's going to be ugly. So I hope you'll agree that that needs to be done real soon, no matter what we do on Union Street. It's just, some things just can't wait. And that almost concludes it, except for, my theory on projects that should be funded through articles. Talk about it, don't talk about it, but I just put it down there so you could take a peek at it. These are our main streets and secondary streets that, if you put a philosophy of spending together, I think the town should pay for, if not through a roads program, sustained roads program, then through citing a project every year and asking that the town pay for it. And again, Chapter 90 funds, what I want to do with the Chapter 90 funds, if we could just form this discipline, bring them into the neighborhoods. And again, repeating the same old speech, but some of our neighborhoods haven't been touched since they've been approved 20, 30 years ago. The same pavements there, the same failures exist, the same patchwork goes into it. And as long as we go to Main Street with Chapter 90 and Route 115 and Needham Street, we're not going to have the money to go in. So I think this is the model that you see happen in a lot of towns. Not that I just thought of this, but without a sustained roads program, we need to come up and identify these main streets. And I think the public will go for it because that's the streets that they use. They may not be as interested in going and spending money in Pheasant Hill or down at Village Green because they never go down there. But they always go down Needham Street, they always go down Seccong Street. So that was my thinking of that, and I'll conclude with that.
Question.
Sure.
We've talked about a new well being somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 million, right? All right?
Less money.
Less.
Yep.
What?
$1.5 million, $1.6 million.
Fully operational, permitted?
Yep. Especially if we own the land, it'll be less than that.
Even less than that. You think it'll be less than
So,
that?
Hey.
let's just take a
Well,
while.
I want to make
Let's
sure
not
we're saying
even
the same
say that
thing.
then, you know.
I'm not disagreeing with that, I just want to make sure you're saying the same thing.
Okay?
$1.6 million if you own the land.
I'm talking about from start to finish, operational, in the system, working, total cost, without land.
If I could preface it, just, because Bob knows better than I do, but just from listening to Steve, I mean, the number I hear is 1.5 to 3, and because you don't know.
Well, that's what I've heard too, that's why I'm asking.
Well-
It's a big range.
But it is a big range, but you don't know what facility you're gonna have to build. You don't know what minerals you're gonna have to deal with. You don't know what kind of treatment center you're gonna have to build. You don't know if you're gonna have to build a UV
Then
center.
let me phrase it another way. If you hit a spot where you have good water, for lack of another term.
Clean water. on
Clean
town-owned-
water, is
on
that
a
the right
town-owned
word?
property.
All right. Clean water on our property. Is that the 1.5 number?
I believe so, 1.5 to 2.
1.5 to 2, okay. And it could go as high as 3 based on the number of issues that arise.
Could be
whether we
that
have to
needs
treat for
treatment.
minerals or things of that nature.
Exactly right.
Okay. There's a reason,
Center alone could cost 1.5, if it means that we get into that.
right, which would be take it to the 3.
Take it to the 3.
So there's a reason why I'm asking that, because we're looking for ways to develop capital. And I think you know where I'm going with it. And I'm sorry to be mystical, but I don't want to share things that haven't been shared with groups that would make decisions on this. But there might be a way, as part of the project that we're looking at now, to dedicate some resources to roads. I mean, we've focused on, I'm talking about Southwood. We've focused on public safety, police, fire, and water. Those have been the focus, because the revenue component takes care of increased costs associated
The
outside
annual
of that.
revenue component.
Correct.
Yep.
What we're trying to work through is capital. How do we get the upfront capital? And I shared an idea on how we might do that yesterday with Ray, but it may be that roads ought to become a component of that.
I've read the emails, and I'm 75% understanding, but I'm a little foggy on some of what you're talking about.
Well, if you predicate let me give you an example. When they did the Meeting House Road situation up here, the condos, and I think it was based on occupancy permit at that time, wasn't it, Jack?
Yep.
Yeah. Every time there was an occupancy permit issued, a $10,000 payment was made to the town that was dedicated to affordable housing. That was the deal that was made in order to get that project approved. A concept like that could work at Southwood, because that component gets built into the operational costs associated with the development of the project. It isn't someone sitting down at the front end and writing you a check for $2, $3, $4 million. It's someone paying you as it develops. And if you did it at the permitting end as opposed to the occupancy end, you can generate, if we could work out the details, you could generate somewhere between potentially $3+ million. So we know what the number is for police, and we know what the number is for fire. And we thought that 1.5 would be a good number for water. But that doesn't
For
make,
water, or for the
for
taxpayer?
wells. No, just capital.
Yeah.
This is just upfront money, nothing to do with revenue. This is just upfront money. We got $440,000 from that project to affordable housing. Just dedicated resources. You could do the same thing at Southwood. Dedicate it to whatever you want, I believe, can't you?
Yeah, it's
I mean,
part of the
there's no rules to that. I mean,
That one was part of the comprehensive permit as a 40B. we just have to figure out how to roll it into this. It's a
Which I
different-
think we could
different
do,
instrument.
especially if we do it in an overlay district.
Yeah.
So,
I think that if that project, I've never weighed in on this, and I just can't even touch what you guys know about this kind of planning. But if, in fact, that project is good for this town, on a site that is unattractive to most anything else, it may be an opportunity that we don't want to chase away. So if you go at them too greedy, or not
Oh.
using that word, you don't want to risk
this
that either.
actually isn't greedy. It actually takes away the greed, because that's been the issue. It is, I mean, you've got a site owned by the Archdiocese that has 2 polluted sites on it. We'll sit on that forever. Because the Archdiocese isn't going to sell it unless they've got a full release. I mean, I can't imagine that they would sell this without a full release for someone's going to clean them up and remove them from any potential future liability. I think, when we all agree, that's pretty much chiseled stone. So we've got a guy before us that we've been able to work through a lot of the concerns associated with schools and by using restricted age and things of that nature. The issue we've been trying to figure out is the revenue side looks very attractive to the town. It's on the plus side, just let's say it that. How do we get the upfront capital for the issues associated with the 3 major components that probably will have additional expense, which is police, fire, and water? But roads are a component of that as well. So if you're asking somebody to just, for you to say, go for it, and he's going to write you a check for $3 million, it's a little unlikely. Maybe, but to me, it's a little unlikely. If we could build that in to a process that it got built into the pricing of the operation, which is what happened up here. I mean, that $10,000 was built into the costs associated with developing that project. No one really wrote the check. It was built in.
Yeah, it sounds a little like profit share. Sounds a little like profit share. It sounds
does,
like
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as they gain, we gain a little, and
Everybody wins.
sounds good.
That's what that memo was
Sounds real
about.
good. I understand it now, yeah.
But I hadn't thought of it as roads, because we focused only on those 3 items.
Right.
And the reason roads is because it's going to be private. And you've only got the state highway. They're going to have to deal with the state in terms of what they do or they don't do, and probably more their vote than our vote, I would imagine, wouldn't it be, Jeff? And you're probably familiar with what went on up at the Hill. That just seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that there is a connection, and obviously there is. I mean, people are going to be using the roads. Also, in terms of sidewalks. I mean, I think there's some practical implications to that many people living on Southwood that would want to walk to town, and have
Especially
the
if it's
ability to
all-
get all the
especially
way
with
into
restricted
town. So, there are some practical reasons why that makes a lot of sense.
I think that whole area has great promise, and not even the center of town, because, you got Shire Industrial Park is all bought out. If they build and they populate, you're going to have balance in the center of that intersection, where you have Shire Industrial Park, when I want to take a walk at lunchtime to use the stores in not the downtown, but in the village area that seems to be developing. And then you have that population up at Southwood. Then you have a doctor's building. Then there's more going on. So that's when we talked about, maybe it'd be good to build that corridor with curbs, sidewalks, landscaping, trees, street lighting that complements the center of town, something like that, and invite the people to come along with what's already happening. It can almost describe the type of business that should be built there, I mean, there's a glass company there, but it's not retail, it's not. But there are people going to have needs.
If we can continue to nail down some of the concerns, I mean, this could be
Sure.
a pretty attractive opportunity.
It's exciting. It's not scary. It's exciting.
No,
It's good stuff.
It's an opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to be sure you don't, it has to work, and a lot of time's been spent on it.
I'm done.
But
we go.
we got to throw roads in there.
Almost done. He's not done. He's almost done.
Well,
The roads put
There is one more
sidewalks
thing.
too, Jim. Some of the
So wait, is this
roads that
Ross and
exist.
Bob?
and are in fine shape, could
Yeah.
use sidewalks.
Yeah,
So I would say
absolutely.
roads and sidewalks.
This is a draft of, it's still, I want to call it a draft,
Oh,
draft
sorry,
of the
Bob.
wastewater
Thanks.
treatment budget. Phil, Phil McNulty, our water superintendent, who has also, without much fanfare, taken on the wastewater treatment.
This is a full year.
It's a full year. So, and Phil's out on vacation this week. That's why I'm calling it a draft, because I wanted to have a little more, I call it negotiation, but a little more discussion with him, just looking at his numbers versus what I was kind of expecting. So, I think these numbers make sense, at least, we're looking at,
Sorry.
did everybody have it? And did I give it to you?
We haven't had any surprises based on the 6 months that we've projected.
Nope. So this was looking at, no, but Phil does have a long list of, and I've given you this second sheet that shows his list of projects that he'd like to get done. And this was, he's throwing everything at the wall, saying this is what needs to get done. So I haven't had a discussion with him, so I cut out a couple of the bigger ticket items that I think, based on my understanding, from talking to Phil and talking to some of the consultants, based on the volume that's going on there now and where the facilities that we're talking about are, I don't think we need to put those in on year one. So I cut those out, but again, I want to have that follow-up conversation with Phil just to make sure that I'm not giving him something he can't live with.
Have we done any analysis to find out what it might, what it would take to bring it across the street?
Well, we really got to know. At least I haven't.
Well, two things. I know I'm going to say what you're going to say.
Go ahead.
Careful,
Matt.
number one.
Well-
And it wouldn't be an expense to us.
Well, I understand.
You
but-
need to tell somebody else what the cost would be, I mean.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing, but there is a cost. It
Yep.
doesn't come out of our pocketbook, I understand. But it has to be a cost they're willing to absorb.
Yeah, and that still has to be, so there are easements in place that we inherited
Right.
that give, that allocate flow, for lack of a better word, to the property owners that are within the district as it stands today. And I think that, depending on what ends up going in there, whether, if you start getting 3 restaurants, and I'm no expert here, so believe me, I'm stretching here, but,
We couldn't handle that capacity.
well, yeah, we're going to have, we wouldn't be able to add more capacity. So that's my only, I love talking about stretching the zone and helping out some of the rest of the
So basically,
people.
what you're saying is, you're basically sort of reserving the system for what potentially might go into that spot, as opposed to expanding the system and limiting what could go into that spot.
Right. Right. We know that we have to, because of the easements that are in place, that the property owners,
Has the right.
have the right to connect now. If we start connecting other places and then don't have the
It would limit what he could do in that spot.
right, which would
Not
put
be
us
good.
at risk of
Violating probably the,
violating the easement that he has, so, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, again, I'm not ruling it out, I'm just, we gotta have, there may have to
No,
be
no, that makes sense.
negotiations about, and what they end up putting in there. If they end up putting in 2 law offices or whatever, which, without a lot of flow, then there will be capacity, excess capacity. That's my only concern when we start
Mm-hmm.
going down that path.
The ideal would be them to build up nice stuff there quickly. so
Have
there's
there
no-
been any discussions regarding what potentially might go on there?
I haven't, no, not, I know Ray has had discussions, but I don't think the property owners come back and with anything solid.
Nothing on your side, Jeff?
No, there have been some conceptual plans, but nothing solid, no.
So we're hoping Silla's is gonna be open in the next 30 to 60 days. So that'll add some flow, some capacity going on there. And the physical therapy.
Yeah, when will that, when's that slated to go?
I think that's the same kind of time frame. I'm not sure, but that's, those are moving.
Okay, all right, thanks. No, it makes sense.
Yeah, no, and we've had discussions about Could we connect, would we want to connect town hall? Probably not. I mean, I think the
You don't have
system
that
would.
much
Yeah.
need here, do you?
No, and the system
We
works.
don't have any septic issues here.
No, yeah. No, the system works and, yep.
In terms of the allocation of the cost,
Oh, I
or
do
when
have
it
one more
comes to,
question, Bob.
billing
Yeah.
users. So I think what I was hearing is where there's some undeveloped land, they have certain rights to
Right.
that facility, correct? So we have to make sure that we don't usurp those
Right.
rights.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
so,
Jack's point is right.
so do they pay anything?
They pay-
until they-
They pay based on the allocations.
So they're included in the allocation even though
They're not
they're not a
being used.
user? So there's a fixed and there's a variable component maybe to the
There's a fixed.
charges?
There's a
For
fixed.
them, it's just
There's no
fixed.
there's no variable. We'd like to migrate to a variable and have them build on water, basically, the traditional way of doing this is to bill them on water usage.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that would make more sense. We're setting up a meeting with some of the folks to have some of those discussions. But, I guess to put it, the short story is, we always talk about Walgreens with their one toilet getting a big bill, which they do. But really, it's not just Walgreens, it's that the Ahold property getting the bill. And just because they're unbuilt, that's why they're getting a, $4,500 a month bill. Once, if they start adding on more stores, obviously that,
It's still before.
And I don't know-
Right, it would just be they can apportion it to more of their tenants, right?
Right.
Because the bill's not gonna go up, at least the way the system works now, right?
Correct.
So it's in their interest to build it out theoretically.
it'll go up a little bit, but not,
No,
I mean, there'll be the chemical portion and the electrical portion of the utilities is a minor portion of this bill, so those are the variable ones that'll go up, but very little.
There would always be a fixed component, right, for those situations where there hasn't been any development?
Yeah, it's, if I understand you correctly, there's a fixed portion of the budget that, basically just our operator doing whatever the magic they do up there. Bob can tell you maybe better what that magic is, but just doing the daily inspections and all that. There's the scheduled maintenance to the facilities itself, replacing whatever hardware needs to get replaced. That won't really, I don't think that'll change dramatically. Either of those will, certainly the operating cost won't change, but then I don't think the facility cost will change dramatically. If we go from 4,000 gallons a day up to 20,000 gallons a day, it'll still be the same. So most of the costs are fixed.
Has there been any movement or change regarding the easement consideration?
No, we're hoping to set up this meeting and find out if some of the litigation that's going on with the other parties has been resolved, because we haven't heard that it has. Had some conversations with our attorneys about that, and they haven't heard from their connections. So Bob's trying to set up a meeting. We need to talk about, he's doing some work with the condo association on the roads, just giving them some help with our vendors to try and do the back roads, the private roads.
Are we still making that payment? We are, aren't we?
Making the payment on,
For the tower, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
We're still making that
Yeah,
payment, aren't we?
yeah. Well, we're holding it though, because that's part of the litigation between those two parties. So we're
still
not.
putting it out.
But we
Obligation.
haven't sent the check,
Correct.
but we've accrued.
I don't think
that.
we're due to send one until next summer sometime, so.
Okay, but we're accruing it. We've got it on the books.
Yep. Oops, sorry.
Okay.
What was I gonna say? Oh, so Bob's talking to them about doing the interior roads. He's not, it's not just negotiating with them and helping get our contractors up there. So as part of that discussion, we're gonna talk to them about the future of the septic treatment plant. All good.
Well, either way, we're still going to be stuck for an easement one way or the other, regardless of who owns it.
For now, yeah, right? Unless we do some other.
Yeah.
Unless we do an alternative.
Yeah.
Yep.
It doesn't matter who owns it, right?
So
Yeah, unless we can negotiate our way out of it.
which would be
A handshake.
the hill.
Well, no, well, up the hill is always,
Yeah, you
is
could.
always the,
Yeah.
Well, we're in there doing the wastewater for them, with the future being much brighter than it would if it was privatized. We're working out the pavement with them to cooperate with our paving in the front. I mean, it's all good for an easement. I'd like to see the easement just go away, you know, if it is in fact, but this easement is still
It's up-
under Borelli.
Well,
if I can
it's
mention-
in litigation as to
Yeah,
who
we don't-
who
right.
really
Yeah.
owns it.
Right.
Right.
But
It's not our concern in the sense that, you want it to go away.
Well, we just
There's a revenue
carve-
component with it, that's what, well, I'm sure they don't want it to go away.
No, but there's a quid pro quo.
No, I agree.
I mean,
For what
you know,
Bob's
to
talking
make-
about.
if it
Yeah,
becomes
yeah.
the possession of the condos, that's
Yeah.
where that was
Right,
my
yes.
perspective. If not, then we can look at maybe carving another road up there, because eventually it will catch up to be the best move.
Right.
Okay.
Anything else, Bob? Anyone have any?
Are you gonna hang around for exec session?
No, but we still have to do the minutes and the appointing charity.
I should take a minute.
What's that?
Yeah, I mean, Bob and I, yeah, go ahead. I think it would be good if Bob stuck around at least for a couple minutes of the.
Yeah, I have no
exec
problem. I just want to move on. Before we go to executive session, let's
Go.
finish up live session. I do have a motion to approve appointing Charity Stolars to the Cultural Council.
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, acceptance of minutes. Tiffany?
Motion to accept the minutes for the meetings of March 10th, 2015, March 25th, 2015, and April 13th, 2015.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And Jack, do we have anything else then before we? Second session? We're not be coming back out, right?
No, I wouldn't, I don't need to come back out, but the only other thing I wanted to say is we just, we need to, unless I'm mistaken, Marion will tell me if I'm wrong, we need to appoint somebody to the Norfolk County Board of Advisors. Jack McFeely was serving in that role, so if anybody listening is interested in representing the town on the Norfolk County Board, Dave Wildman has done it in the past, although I think Dave's moved out of town, and Jack has done it for a long time, so I need to find somebody.
Who's that, Marion? No. Okay.
We did, sometimes my mind doesn't work as well as it used to. We lost a couple of people in the last couple of weeks. George Cronin Sr. and Jim Foley, who both, George, longtime businessman in town, and but also was moderator for a year, and probably, I think Marion's still working out. He was-
Baseball coach, King Philip, hockey coach, King Philip, I mean, very active in the community.
Yeah. And Mr. Foley, dairy farmer in town, but also former firefighter, his wife.
DPW,
DPW, what's that?
deputy
Fire chief. His wife predeceased him, was also the town accountant for many years. So just two long-term Norfolk residents we lost this week, so.
Anything else from anyone else? No? Hearing nothing else? Oh, I'll remind people too, before we do go next, please vote on Tuesday, May 5th. Polls open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Correct.
Just a question. You had shared something, I'm not sure if it was finalized, but the legislature was looking at allowing the towns to, was it,
Oh, yeah.
over
Oh,
3
snow and
years,
ice deficit.
amortize over 3 years?
Snow and ice deficit.
So how does that affect our conversations and presentations at town meeting? Whether we get into it tonight or future discussion, I'll leave that up to you, Scott, but I didn't know what the
Yeah, I
game
think,
plan was.
Julie and I are still trying to figure out, we had a couple meetings the last couple of days talking about, I thought I brought that legislation with me, but I don't think I did. So that's in place, so we have that option to do that. And I think the selectmen would have to take a vote before year end just to do that. It doesn't have to be done before town meeting. Because basically, we're going to carry that.
Over anyway.
We're pretty confident we're going to have to carry a balance into the year end that we'll have to deal with either on the next year's tax rate recap or close at next fall's town meeting. But we have the ability to take that deficit and close that gap over a 3-year period. A little, as with anything, I always am a little hesitant at first to take the more aggressive approach, but, this is hopefully, knock on
You're not
wood.
expecting another winter like
And
this next year.
yeah, just,
Well, I'm
hope for
moving.
3 more years we don't get hit, but we've looked at, I think Bob's done a great job looking at his budget. We've got some potential money savings there that we're going to transfer into the deficit. Public safety does as well. The HR department has stepped up big and got some money to transfer. Percentage-wise, he's doing great. His budget is not
We'll
that
take
big.
every
but-
50 bucks we can get. So when you're said and done, what will the deficit be?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I mean, it's 400 and something now. I think we can get it down to 250, 200, and I'm hoping for it to go even farther than that. So if I can get it down to 150, I'd be really excited.
Which we could close with the certified free cash in the fall town meeting.
Yeah, but we're yes,
Good.
yes. But all these things that we do all end up drawing money from the same
I know,
pot.
I
So
know, I know.
we're stealing money from all the budgets that would flow into free cash. So we're potentially going to have a small free cash number.
Right, but the alternative is to carry it over as a future debt over a 2 or 3 year period.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to have a little free cash number, and we also already pegged $150,000 from free cash to go to the employee benefit line, because we think the school's going to, the school's talked about turning back that money.
Yep.
So, got a lot of numbers floating in my head.
I
It's
was going to
just,
say, it's like a deal on paper. Okay.
Thank you, Jack.
no problem. Thank you. I meant to bring it up. Thank you for bringing it up.
Anything else before we turn?
No, I got a scheduling question, so we can do that later.
All right, a motion to, do I get a motion to adjourn public sessions?
Well, I will move to go into executive session.
Okay,
Well, I'll second.
all right, Scott, second motion, okay, all those in favor?
James Lehan, aye.
Scott Bugby, aye.
Jeff Palumbo, aye.
Thank you, folks, and good evening. Again, remember to vote on May 5th.